Hi everyone, Leanne Pilkington with you for the latest in the Laing+Simmons webinar Partners series. And with me from Highspec Property is Amanda Gould. Hello, Amanda.
Hi Leanne, how are you?
Very well. Now, Highspec are award-winning buyer's agents.
Yes.
Why would someone actually go to a buyer's agent?
Look, the top three reasons people come to us is firstly time.
Yeah.
A lot of people think off-market's the first, but it so isn't, because we actually ask every single client with a survey once they've actually bought with us.
Right, okay.
What the top reasons are they, and it's time and time again, time saving.
That's very organised of you.
Yeah, always, because I like to know, does it change every year? Is it the same? It's pretty much the same, time saving. Even people that are retired and are downsizing have time saving because they've got other priorities and they're not building their career.
It is actually after just buying a property myself, I understand how time consuming and bloody confusing it is.
Yeah. So time saving, negotiation.
It's a big one.
Most people only buy, 1, 2, maybe 3 properties in their lifetime, which is not a lot. We're buying up to 80 properties a year. So, obviously have to have a professional negotiator going into bat for you with another professional negotiator who's negotiating for the vendor is very important.
And that's it's really important for people to remember, right? Real estate agents aren't paid to get the best deal for the vendor.
100%.
Yes, they have to deal ethically and honestly with buyers, but they will negotiate as hard as they can to get the best price for the vendor. So buyers agents,
100%, and we're on the other side, making sure that our client's offer gets accepted. And of course, we can negotiate the best price. Sometimes at auction, it's fair market price, but that would definitely negotiation the second. And third is off markets.
Okay, so let's talk about off market. How long have you been a buyer's agent?
12 years now.
12 years.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like there's a lot more off-market happening now than there was, say, 10 years ago. Is that right?
100%. So when I first started, it was only luxury property that was off-market. And really, when I first started, I didn't have a huge amount of luxury clients. It was mostly people with probably sub 1.5 mil. And then that started building once I, started helping more people. And really it was luxury property. Luxury property 10 years ago was, 4 or 5 million.
Okay. Which is kind of middle of the range now, which is awful.
But now it's everything. Like I just bought something off market for a first home buyer in Rosebery for 680,000.
Really?
And that was just purely through the connections that I've built up over decades. And of course, before I was a buyer's agent, I've been buying property, renovating and flipping. So a lot of the eastern suburbs agents specifically knew me because that's where I was flipping. So I've had that reputation for a long time. I know property, but I've been buying property in Sydney all over since 1988. So I've actually built up a lot of goodwill and, relationships over the years.
And so some of the agents will actually email you and say, we've got a property coming on off market. And so do they normally say, okay, we've got a 2-week off market campaign, or it depends?
If it's a off market campaign, it might be 2 weeks. If they come to me or I go to them and we just happen to jag a property at the right time, they'll say, you can have it exclusively, sometimes, not all the time. You can have it exclusively for 48 hours. And if your client performs and they like it and buy it, great. If they don't, then we'll take it out to the rest of the buyer's agents. Now, because I've been around a long time and I have a reputation and I work well with agents, I do get a lot of those. In fact, I bought a really great property in Bondi Beach that way. And I'd been on this agent, calling him pretty much weekly, when it's coming through. And I knew that he was trying to sign it, but there was a few legalities that the owner had to go through before he could sell. And he said, I'll give it to you exclusively until your client, and pretty much I had that, I think it might have been 48, 72 hours because I had to get a strata report. But we did all of that and we did that. And that happens quite a lot.
Often.
Actually,
when we bought the house we're living in now, which is 30 years ago, we actually bought it off market because the real estate agent was taking us around and we're like, no, don't like it. And he said, you know what? I actually think you'll like this one. It's not on the market. I know they're getting a divorce, so it's going to come on the market sooner or later. And we actually bought it off market. So,
there you go. And that's a relationship, isn't it?
It was a relationship.
And everybody likes a secret. See, I always say to my clients, Look, off-market is great, and it's a great tool in our tool belt to have as another option rather than just what's on market where you've got a lot more competition. However, your perfect property might be on market. Do you know it's harder for me to do my job when it's on market than off market? Because there's a lot more moving parts.
Yeah.
There's people that are, wanting to buy that property also, maybe wanting to overpay for that property. Yeah. So then I've got to deal with the client's emotion of how they can't get that property because now it's overpriced. So it's a lot harder to buy something when there's a lot more people involved and more opens, etc., rather than an off-market, which has a limited amount of people that has actually seen that property.
Yeah.
But there's also expectations with off-market. A lot of people will sell off-market because they maybe are testing the market.
Yeah.
They don't want to have any skin in the game, meaning that they don't want to get styling. They don't want to have people traipsing through the house. They don't want to pay for marketing. And they'll say, if we get this price, then we'll sell. Yeah. That price may not be realistic. So I always say to my clients, you're not going to get a deal automatically because it's off market sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it depends on the vendor, but it's a case by case.
Yeah.
So it's not always the best way to buy property.
No.
And it's not always the best way to sell property. But I suppose if they've got a price in mind and they get what they want, then it can work. But I always caution my clients, your perfect property that ticks all your boxes may be one on market. So you've just got to be prepared for that. Yes, we can do off market. Yes, we can door knock, like a
So do you do that? Door knock a street?
Look, not for every single.
I can't see you door knocking.
I have.
Have
you? Yeah. We've had great success, especially around Alexandria, Mossman, places that we're buying a lot of property, Bondi.
Yep.
But to be honest, it is easier to deal with an agent. I would much rather give the agent the list of streets that we want and get them to door knock because they've already got the existing relationship. Me coming in, they don't have any trust yet.
No.
So I'm going to have to build that up, whereas the agent already might have that. So I will preface to say we rarely do it unless the agents haven't performed. I'll give the agents a couple of months and with those streets, if they've had no luck, then I'll reassess. But I'll always let them know, hey, look, if you can't do this, I get it, but I'm going to have to go elsewhere. And whether that's another agent that might have a better relationship with those owners or me physically going out and door knocking. But we can't do that for every single client. It's just not
it's too much.
It's too much, too time consuming. But then you're also dealing with vendors that have unrealistic expectations of what their property is worth. Now, thankfully, the agent already conditions them. These are the last 3 sales in the area. This is what it's worth. But us coming in, because we're working for the buyer, they're not paying a commission. So they're like, oh, well, she's obviously wanting to get the deal, so it's cheaper. So it's a lot easier to deal with an agent than it is to deal with an owner. I will say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the importance of having agents and a buyer's agent. You take the emotion out of it. You've already raised the point that people can overpay if they particularly want a street or a school catchment or whatever. So how do you work out what a property is actually worth? Because there's so much variety in properties today, right?
So we have an IP that I've created over the years, which is a spreadsheet, and we just put all of the comparables in there. So that might be obviously the location, because one street is not worth the same as another. We know those in the locations that we're buying. One street might not fall in that school catchment, as you mentioned, or it just might be closer to a busy road. Then we've got the square metres of the land, we've got the square metres of the internals, or if it's a unit, what floor it's on. Obviously, a 5th floor is worth more than the 1st floor or the ground floor, unless it's got a courtyard, and then the courtyard's worth more. So there's quite a lot of parameters in there that we'll look at.
Yeah.
Is it north facing? Is it west facing? Is it south facing?
Yeah.
North facing being north or northeast being the most desirable, which is the value is a lot more than a south facing. How big the external area is. If it's on a busy road, if it's renovated, if it's unrenovated. These are all of the things that we put into a spreadsheet.
Right.
And then, so we'll do a CMA, so a RP data report, and then extrapolate that data into the spreadsheet, because I work better with data, so I can actually go, this is worth this, and this is a busier road, so this is worth less. Or this has got a view, and this doesn't. Now, a view, it's very hard to price a view. Mm-hmm. Somebody might think that view in Mossman of Balmoral is worth $500,000. Somebody might only think it's worth $200,000. It's very, very hard. Even banks find it hard. You go to 3 different valuers, they'll give you 3 different valuations.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it really is an emotional pool, a view, and I always find it challenging to to price a view.
Yeah.
And it's really going to be what other comparables do they have a similar view? If they don't, then what is that value?
Yeah.
But they're all the parameters that we put into place to actually work out what it's worth.
And you buy not just all over Sydney, but North Coast, you buy in other states.
Yes.
How on earth do you keep up with all of that?
Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia. I know.
Of course you do.
There's a lot of data. We do employ people on the ground to do all the inspections. I do all the negotiations though, but they are seeing what's happening on the ground.
Yeah.
So, for example, we're buying in Adelaide. You can have an open that has 40 people. You can get 40 offers by the Monday. So it's not a 4-week campaign like we do here.
Yeah.
More like we have offers closing in a week.
Yeah.
Or closing Monday, depending on when you actually go in to see it. And then it's making sure that you're not overpaying in those markets. What is the reason people are going to those areas, and why is that street better than that street is really a local. You need to have that local knowledge. Now, before I started buying in these locations, I have done a trip to each of the locations that we're looking at, and the suburbs.
Tax-deductible trip.
I know,
well done.
Especially Adelaide, where there's good wineries.
Absolutely.
And I befriended a number of agents in those locations to give me first-hand data. One of them I took out to lunch in Brighton. We had the best time, and she's fantastic. And she said, no, you don't want to be buying in that suburb. Yes, you want to be. So I can look at data. Of course, any buyer's agent can look at that. There's a lot of what we call keyboard warrior buyer's agents that don't even leave their desk and I just don't think we're adding any value to that. No. Anybody could do that. You could make an easy mistake. They're not going to photograph a bad part of the house and put it online, are they? You're not going to know if it's got a
you've got to have that local, local knowledge is really important.
So having somebody on the ground to do that is great, and also to give me that feedback, what's happening, and I catch up with them weekly. Okay, well, what's happening at the moment? Is this still a hot suburb? Yes, the data, but the data is always 3 months out. You've got to be careful of just looking at data. You've got to have on-the-ground feedback. So that's how I keep up to date.
Yeah. Yeah, it would keep you a little bit busy.
Absolutely. And asking the agents, like whether that's around Australia or in New South Wales, if I haven't bought, I've pretty much bought in most parts of Sydney.
Yeah.
But if I haven't been buying in that location, like I have bought a lot in the Sutherland Shire, for example, but it goes and swings and roundabouts. When I have one, I have 2 or 3. Yeah, right. Usually the energy, I don't know, flows where it goes or whatever that saying is. But if I haven't been buying in that area for a while, I'll just ring the agents that I know and I've bought from before. Hey, what's happening? What's happening in the opens? What's happening in the auctions? And when I start receiving more calls from agents, usually means that it's quiet.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
Or they're really trying to get, like I had a call from a Sutherland Shire agent who had it really, and I've been buying a lot of waterfront properties down there. Hey, I've got this amazing waterfront.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody for it? So then you start picking up momentum like that from the agents that know you're always buying in those locations.
Yeah,
it's good.
Nice. You've mentioned one of the top reasons for people using you with negotiation skills.
Yes.
Talk to me about how you actually go about negotiating.
I think the biggest thing is to know the market, know what you're buying. So if you're buying a 3-bedroom home in Balmain, right, for example, does it have a carport? Does it not? Is it renovated? Is it unrenovated? Really know. And if I'm going to give any advice to people that are not using a buyer's agent, go to as many open homes as possible, go to as many auctions as possible, see how they're progressing.
Yep.
Are some price points better at an auction than others? Because sometimes they will go crazy. If they've got a view, forget it. Like you can't. I went to an auction about 4 weeks ago now for a client. We thought we had a pretty good budget. The guide was 2,823.
Yeah.
I had a budget of just over 3,2.
Yeah.
It sold for 3,645 or 3,445. And it had a view of the Harbour Bridge.
Yeah, right.
And that was just 2 downsizers fighting it out. And they didn't make the money. They sold an asset.
They sold an asset
that they'd sat on for 30 years.
Yeah.
And that asset allowed them to overpay by $400,000.
It's a completely different real estate market today as a result of the baby boomers who have made a fortune, the younger people that have invested in Bitcoin and all of that sort of stuff. There's some crazy money out there that people, as you say, haven't really worked for in the traditional sense. So they will pay crazy money, which makes it really hard for people to get an idea of what they can afford.
Look, and my clients have got really good jobs and they've got a really good budget for what they want. It's just, it's because the stock levels are still low. It's driving price. I think it's inflated for no substantial reason, just other than not having enough stock, because obviously we had the pandemic where we had the big peak for most places around Australia. Yeah. We should be in decline now for prices. But because the stock levels, and we've got so many buyers still out there, or they've got approvals that are about to run out, they will go an extra 50,000 or 100,000. I mean, 400 was a bit
too
extreme.
Much. Yeah.
But 50 or 100,000 to them, they might not get that extra 50 or 100,000 when they go to redo their mortgage, their finance, because the interest rates have gone up.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line at the moment to, not overpay. And some clients will say, we don't care. We want this property. Here's an extra 50 or 100. Yeah. Just make it happen.
Yeah.
But then you've got first-time buyers that can't play that.
No, they can't do it.
Or people upsizing from a small unit to a small house.
Yeah.
And they can't play in that game, and that's really changing the market place for everybody else.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. I've been in the industry for over 4 decades. Sad but true, right? Don't tell anybody. And I've never seen a market where prices are rising at the same time as interest rates are rising. But yeah, anyway. So it's doesn't sound like it's only owner-occupiers that use your services. It could be investors,
developers,
and first-time buyers.
First-time buyers, yeah. So pretty much everybody. A little bit of commercial, a little bit of industrial, but the bulk would be investors and owner-occupiers. And sometimes, look, when I first started, I did more investors than owner-occupiers. It was probably about a 70-30 split.
Yeah.
Every year it changes, 50-50. I don't even know what our split is this year because it hasn't been enough. I think we've bought 14 properties so far. It might be pretty even.
Yeah.
But some years is more swing to another. It depends on the interest rates and stuff for the investors, because the yield...
It's got to make it worthwhile.
The yield goes down. So a lot of investors are coming to me with 800,000. It's just not worth buying in Sydney at the moment for 800,000.
No.
It's not going to get the yield, but we could buy them something really amazing in Adelaide for less than that, and still get a 4.5% yield, knowing the interest rates are 6.99 or whatever they are at the moment. It's not so much out of pocket. Whereas if they were buying in Sydney, the yield would be in the 2s or 3s, depending on what we're buying.
Big difference. I've got friends in Perth that are telling me that there's a lot of people investors selling out of Sydney and Melbourne, buying in Perth.
And Perth, look, Perth's an interesting market. The yields are highest in the country. It's got the lowest, I think. There in Adelaide have the lowest vacancy rates.
Right.
So people are queued up down the road
right.
And that's where we know that rent bidding, is illegal, but that's where it really started with people going in and saying, I'll pay an extra 10, I'll pay an extra 20. Now it is illegal, not allowed to do it. But because there's such high demand and there's money, people are going in and buying these properties, but they're not being able to afford to stay in them, so they're renting them.
Yeah.
So there's the rental markets in both locations are
nuts,
are crazy,
and it's bad enough in Sydney. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I was just listening to the Quickie this morning about how diabolical it is in Sydney and rent, and people being left with $50 a week after a rent increase of $100 a week, and it's crazy out there too.
Yeah, it is. It's really difficult. You referenced before buyers agents that are sort of keyboard warriors. I've noticed, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years, buyers agents are springing up everywhere. And to me, I mean, this might be an awful thing to say, but to me, it feels like there are failed real estate agents who think that becoming a buyer's agent is easier. Do you think that's
There's
fair?
certainly a lot of those.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that think they can make a quick buck. There's nothing quick about this, and there's nothing quick to success. I think that hard work is like you work hard, you get a reputation, you know what you do as much research as possible, and you get a reputation for helping clients and achieving results and, getting them the property of their dreams, and then they pass your details on. There are a lot of failed real estate agents that think they can make it easier money. I mean, I actually think it's harder to be a buyer's agent.
Yeah, I think
agents have their patch. They might say, okay, we're just Bondi agents, and they may go to to Rose Bay, or they may go to to I don't know, Bellevue Hill. But as a buyer's agent, we might have a client that says, we want the eastern suburb, Eastern Beaches. I just had someone that I bought off market 2 weeks ago in Clovelly. They wanted all the beaches from Maroubra to Bondi and also Cronulla.
Oh, heavens.
So that was a really big, expanse of locations that we had to look at, and I had to divide that between the team. We ended up buying in Clovelly off market, which was amazing. But that's really hard to navigate, and you've got to know those markets too. You just can't just rock into a new market and not know what you're buying. No. Because if you're going there with an eastern suburbs mentality, you're going to think, oh, this is a bargain.
This is cheap.
But it's not cheap when you compare it to other sales. So I think there's a lot of people that are coming into as a buyer's agent that maybe don't have the experience, and they don't work for a buyer's agency or of other people, and they think that they can come in and just do it and it's easy. But there's a lot more involved, than just hanging a shingle up and selling, no disrespect, but selling a property in a location which the market really well.
Yeah.
You have to know a lot of locations. And there's a lot of buyer's agents that just niche in locations like eastern suburbs or inner west, and that's great. But there's still a lot of suburbs in the inner west.
Yeah, there is.
And then I know a buyer's agent that works in the inner west, but he only works in a certain tiny pocket of the inner west. So he refers business to me in other parts of the inner west that I actually, because I help all over.
Yeah.
I actually prefer that. That helps me because I think I would get, it would just be too monotonous for me to be in the one location all the time. And, I like to have variety. So I don't mind that, we've got 8 clients on our books that have got property, that are looking for properties all over.
Yeah.
It invigorates me more than anything.
And so if someone's looking for a buyer's agent, what are the 3 questions you think that they need to ask before they decide on which buyer's agent they should use?
That's
other than obviously going to you.
Well, thank
you.
mean,
hello.
I think the first thing is, how long have they been doing it?
Yeah.
How many properties do they own themselves? I think nobody ever asks me that. I'm happy to give them the addresses.
I can't believe, might be different now, but I can still remember 15 years ago speaking to a number of real estate agents that didn't own any property. They were renting, and it's like,
I just would never go to somebody. Okay, so when I used to be in travel, the people used to compare travel agencies, right? And I used to say, ask them where they've travelled.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to a travel agent that's never got on a plane and travelled. What would be the point? Yeah. Anybody can read an article. It's living an experience.
Yes, so
and
true,
I think a lot of the sales agents that play games have never bought a property. They haven't been on the buy side.
Yeah.
So they don't understand the nuances and the pitfalls and the things that can go wrong and the games and all of that. They don't understand what it is to be on the flip side. So I think having somebody that owns a lot of property, how many properties do they buy? On average a year, locations that they buy in is important, and asking them if they can have 3 clients' phone numbers to call. I always offer it.
Yeah, I'm a big one on actually calling people, and people will say to me, "Oh, they're not going to give you a reference. They're not going to let you call someone who's going to give them a bad reference." But you'd be surprised how many people can't give you 3 phone numbers.
Yeah.
And that tells you everything, right?
100%. Like I don't care. You go onto my website, you pick the house, and I'll just give you the client.
Yeah.
I'm that confident that the clients have had an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Because we've done everything in our power to be able to get them. And even clients that have challenging briefs. I've just had a client that we bought for at the end of last week, and it was off market also. So we've got a pretty good ratio. I think we're at maybe 46% off market this year. Right. I could be wrong, but it's pretty high. And it's taken me 6 months. Normally our turnaround time, last year our turnaround time was 4 weeks.
Wow.
This year it's probably blown out to 6 because of the stock levels, 6 weeks. But it's not about the time it takes. As you can see, sometimes it takes longer because clients have very, very specific briefs that they want to tick as many boxes as possible because they're spending a lot of money.
Yep.
And those clients did take 6 months. And, and I'll be asking them for a reference too and a testimonial. And I know that they're happy with the result in the end, and they bought off market, and they got a great location, and their number one preference was to be close to the station and walking distance, but their walking distance was anything under 800.
Right.
We've got 400 to St Leonard Station and 200 to the new metro in Cresnes. So, you can't get better than that, and location was their number one, and everything we were bringing there before that just wasn't, it was either uphill and it wasn't an easy walk or whatever it happened to be. So It just happened to work for them. Yeah, so it's not about the time, but it's certainly good to be able to know that you've given that advice and
absolutely.
People are happy with it.
And you've found something that's perfect for them.
Exactly.
So good. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's always great to catch up.
Pleasure. Enjoy chatting about it, of course. Anything to do with property.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Leanne.